Buongiorno a tutti. Iniziamo.
Good morning to you all. Let us begin with our press conference. After the statements of the Minister and the Commissioner, we will give you some time for questions. Good morning to you all. I would like to thank my good friend Maroš Šefčovič for having been so gracious to visit our country and for addressing important themes in the domain of trade after the introduction of tariffs and the agreement between the United States and the European Union, to see how we could work together to face the major issues that pertain to international trade for us Italians. It is a fundamental aspect for our economy. It accounts for about 40% of our GDP, so you can imagine how hard we're working. You know that we have a plan to promote Italian exports. Our conversation was extremely pleasant and positive. And I told Commissioner Šefčovič how important it is for us to include within the overall 15%, let's say, a framework, some sectors that are not included yet and that risk instead being subjected to higher than rates: iron, wine, cheese, and aluminum. Steel and aluminum risk becoming a very serious problem. Then we have machinery, olive oil. Excluding these sectors would be a great problem. I also asked the Commissioner to support us in our actions to protect Italian businesses that export pasta. We see no dumping activities being carried out by Italy. Actually, we are trying to resist Italian-sounding products which threaten quality Italian-made products. I would like to thank Maroš for always having supported us in asking for a revision of decisions. The Italian government and the European Commission then are working together to support Italian businesses. And also in the proceedings that are in place, both the EU and the Commission have submitted relevant documentation to protect our pasta industry. The Commissioner has also accepted to talk with our businessmen and women during our working lunch. Steel. The 50%, let's say, tariff on steel and aluminum and byproducts, that's terrible because this is having an awful impact on the Italian automotive industry. So we would like all this to fall within the 15% rate. We also talked about critical raw materials and rare earth minerals, more specifically. And I do think that we need to find an agreement between EU, United States, and Japan to make sure that our global competitiveness is ensured. Rare earth minerals are absolutely fundamental for a country like Italy, which is the second industrial powerhouse in Europe, I would say. So the very high prices that have been imposed by China, of course, they're working to further their own interests, but we have to do the same. The restrictions to the export of rare earth minerals on the part of China are very worrisome. So we need to keep talking to China and other producer countries to access these very valuable resources. We are willing to host here a storage facility for rare earth minerals to serve in Europe. I just came back from my trip to Africa, and I once again reiterated that we need to work together on raw materials through joint ventures between Italian and African companies. Regarding the Mercosur agreement, I reiterated our stance on this. We are in favor. We would like the agreement to be signed. We're very happy with the industrial part of that agreement, but some other sections that refer, for example, to agricultural products, rice, meat, and white meat more specifically, where we still have a number of concerns. So we are counting on the support of the European Commission and the European Union to give answers that protect also our agri-industry business people. The Commissioner has discussed this with Minister Lollobrigida and the representatives of the agricultural world, whom he met yesterday. And he also met with the Italian Industrialist Union. They're happy with the Mercosur agreement. I do not know whether we will be able to do it by the end of the year, but in the next few months, at the beginning of 2026, we are confident that we will find an agreement. We keep working to make sure that trade is increasingly free. And we want to make sure that our trade policy initiatives and in our missions abroad, we can always work in tune and in harmony with the European Union. And I believe that thanks to the work of Commissioner Šefčovič, we have already obtained very positive results in the agreement signed with the United States. Other countries have to pay 50, 60, 100% in duties and in tariffs. And so this is the work that we have shared. I have to thank Commissioner Šefčovič because his cabinet never left Italy behind. They always ask for our opinion. They have always been very open to listen to us and defend Italian trade. And also, I have seen that the Commissioner has always been listened to me, not only because we worked for a long time together in the European Commission in the past, but also with his credibility, right? In the dialogue he had with the United States, he can really help our country and our businesses.
Thank you very much, the Deputy Prime Minister, dear Antonio. For me, it's indeed a pleasure to share the podium with you because, as you just highlighted, we of course go way back. We had very close professional journeys, and I can tell you that we miss you in Brussels because you've been outstanding commissioner, you've been great president of the European Parliament, and I still share fond of memories when we've been traveling together to promote European interest, be it in our member states, but also abroad. And I think that you brought all that experience, all that wisdom and positive energy back to Italy, and also the ambition, which is extremely positive and which we needed this time of global trade turmoil. The fact that in these very challenging circumstances, Italy has become the fourth largest global exporter is remarkable. And I know that you do not want to stop there, that you even put a higher target to export 700 billion euros of products and services out of the European Union is just proof of resilience of Italian economy, the fact that you have strong sectors in different types of economic activities, from machinery through pharmaceutical business down to excellent agri-food industry, whom I met just a few moments ago. And of course, everyone in the world loves to come to Italy for vacations, for holidays, for your excellent food, and not speaking about wine and everything else. So Italy really is despite a very difficult and volatile economic situation, doing extremely well. We are very happy about it, and of course we will be working together to make sure that it would even improve into the future. We've been discussing with the Deputy Prime Minister the impact on the free trade agreements, on the situation in Italy and in Europe, and I have to say that just if you look at the last examples of the agreements with South Korea, Japan or Canada, Italy was one of the major beneficiaries of this free trade agreements. I was just sharing very impressive result if it comes to exports to Canada, where Italian mozzarella, protected geographical indication mozzarella, is exported to Canada in growth of 1,300% since the free trade agreement kicked in. When I saw that in my brief, I saw that there must be an error. The decimal point is missing somewhere. No, it's really 1,300% plus of mozzarella exports to Canada. We just proved that you have very able economic operators, very flexible sector who knows how to jump on the new opportunities, new market access, and new openings. Therefore, Italy was always a great supporter of free and fair trade, and I also would like to thank the Prime Minister Meloni and Deputy Prime Minister Tajani for their support in our negotiations with the United States of America. As you know, it was not easy. We went through a very turbulent period. We found in the end this July agreement, and comparing to any other deal which was struck since then between US and any other country, I think that we could be really satisfied and pleased with the results we have achieved, especially as Deputy Prime Minister highlighted the 15% all-inclusive tariff. But we know that this is not done yet. There are still sectors, there are still areas where we need to do better, and we had detailed discussions about steel, aluminum, and especially the derivatives, which is bringing a lot of not only administrative burden but also cost to the European producers. And I just reassure Mr. Tajani, but also I would like to reassure you that this is a permanent topic in my conversations with our US counterparts, and especially after we introduced very stringent safeguard measures on steel imports to European Union, which is very similar to the measures the United States opted to protect their steel markets. I believe that it's time to come back to the idea of the steel union, to reduce tariffs between two of us, because we are clearly not each other problem if it comes to the steel export, and also resolve this extremely cumbersome process of steel derivatives. We are working very closely, and we will intensify our efforts on addressing the issue of pasta. This is anti-dumping case from the United States, which I understand was on the table for quite some time. And what is needed right now is to be in permanent contact with the US counterparts to supply them with detailed evidence, proper data, proper figures. This is what we do in close collaboration and cooperation with the Italian authorities, but also Italian companies, and we will do our utmost to correct this decision before the definitive decision is taken, which should be around the end of the year. I very much appreciate the discussion we had on China, on our dependencies, be it on critical raw materials, rare earth, or sensitive technologies, which clearly proves that we need to diversify our trade relationships, and therefore I debriefed the Deputy Prime Minister about ongoing negotiations we have with the United Arab Emirates, with India, about concluding talks with Indonesia, with Mexico. We went into greater detail with Mercosur, and I believe very positive exchange we had with the key agri-food sector stakeholders and Minister Lollobrigida a few moments ago. And again, I reassured him and Prime Minister Meloni yesterday and Minister Lollobrigida, thanks to this very intense exchange of views, the agreement with Mercosur, which is on the table right now, is a very much different document than it was originally. There are very strong safeguards. There is very strong accent and focus on reciprocity, and there is also the new possibility of the safety net in a case that something would go wrong with the financial instrument which we are proposing for the next European budget. Last part of our discussion was focused on the topic which is now becoming extremely political and very important, and this is economic security. I informed the Deputy Prime Minister that we are finalizing our work on the new doctrine on economic security, which we should present to the European member states and European Parliament before the end of the year, which would be dealing exactly with the dependencies, which will be dealing with our defense, trade defense instruments. Are they sharp enough? How long does it take it to respond? Because we see that today's world is much rougher than what we used in the past, and therefore Mr. Tajani's idea to also work even closer with the G7 partners and to go beyond declarations to the concrete projects where we can decide that, okay, for this year it would be this mine or that refining facility or that production line, where we can, as a G7, decide who is going to fund what, just to make sure that we would collectively increase economic security for all of us is excellent idea, and we'll be very happy to cooperate on this as well. In conclusion, I think also our discussion clearly underscored that Europe must act strategically, that we have to work with one clear common denominator to remain strong, to remain independent, and to remain future ready. Thank you very much, dear Antonio, for being such a great host.
Thank you, Maroš.
Apriamo ora con alcune domande.
So we have a few questions. Vincenzo Miglietta from Il Sole 24 Ore. And for Minister Tajani and Commissioner Šefčovič, inevitably you talked about tariffs and transatlantic relations. My question comes from this acknowledgement. Yesterday, Italy and Germany, the two largest manufacturing countries in Europe, recorded zero growth in the third quarter, also because of tariffs. I'm not the only one who says this, but the main economic observers are saying this. What can we do on this? What countermeasures can be introduced, and what can we do to make sure that these two countries once again can grow? Well, we would need a whole conference on this, I mean, with politicians and economists talking about this. For sure, tariffs are not good for our economies, but despite the tariffs, in September, our exports to the United States grew by more than 34%. Compared to the same month last year, 2024. And this confirms that the strategy that we have put in place is moving in the right direction. Saying that we're happy with tariffs, no. But we need to work, as we said during my conversation with Commissioner Šefčovič, so that we can include in the package, the 15% package that applies to the EU, all manufacturing sectors. After China, we Italians are the country in the world that has the greatest variety of products for export. We're very interested in this. There are many sectors that need to be included under this 15% umbrella, let's say. So this is a fundamental point for us. Working together, always working with the EU, that goes without saying, because the EU has exclusive competence on this, but we will do whatever we can to support this trade policy that will need to favor economic growth. Exports, well, it is around 40% of our GDP, so imagine how vital this is for us. The wars at the border of Europe are not helping. Trade wars are not helping, but we need to work together. And I confirm what I said to Commissioner Šefčovič. on raw materials and rare earth minerals especially. We'll make sure that the G7 will include in the upcoming meeting that will take place in Canada in mid-November the theme of economic security. So having a strategy, not just in theory, right, and just a political commitment, but also trying and see what concrete projects we might then put in place to make sure that Europe, United States, Japan, and Canada, that we can all have a common plan. We're willing to host a storage facility here. This is another fundamental aspect if we want to favor growth. Everything revolves around our industrial might. We are an industrial continent, and if we have a good trade policy in place, then our businesses can grow. Always remember that if I have to say what I personally think, something that I'm concerned about is the exchange rate between euro and the dollar. So a stronger euro and a weaker dollar. And this, of course, causes additional problems for our exporters in addition to tariffs. So I hope that we also start thinking about this. The European Central Bank, for instance, as they're doing at the Federal Reserve, maybe rates should be cut more, and also introduce another quantitative easing so that we have more cash flow, more liquidity, and weaken the euro. Otherwise, for our exporters, it will become increasingly difficult, and we risk that the cost coming from this unfavorable exchange rate, well, this will just make things worse. It will be even worse than tariffs. And we are working very hard on this, and I would like to thank Commissioner Šefčovič for the 50% agreement, because it's a very good agreement. But then if we reach a good agreement, but then Americans reduce the value of the dollar, then this good agreement will be nullified because of this other situation. And I believe that the ECB should be thinking about this, as the Federal Reserve Bank is doing. If then the Federal Reserve cuts interest rates, then the dollar will be depreciated even more. That would be very risky. If we want to grow and also increase our industrial production, we need to do this as well.
If you allow me just wait, I think that the Prime Minister addressed this question very forcefully, and we had very intense communication throughout the whole year, and indeed there were a moment where we had to take very important decision. Do we want to go into the trade war with the United States of America, and do we want to seek agreement? And I very much appreciate that Italy was on the side of looking for the constructive solutions. I know that it's not ideal. I know when there is a lot of stakeholders and of course parliamentarians who are pointing out to that direction. And my answer to that is show me who did better. And to be honest, we compared all the agreements, and I see what is the real value of the tariffs we are paying, and comparing to any other deal, we really are doing very well in that respect. We know that what is of course extremely challenging for our industry is that they have to cope with this new global volatility, and therefore I think that we, at least with this agreement, been trying to restore some stability, some predictability, and I think for many sectors this agreement was so crucial that we even have seen that the exports started to grow again, which is the positive sign. But I know that for some sectors, machinery, for car sector especially, the summer months been extremely difficult, and we are struggling still with steel. I know that the priority for Italy is also aluminium derivatives, wines and spirit sector, and of course this is the priority for us as well. But talking about the overall situation of European economy, what we are doing from our side in the field of trade is that let's look at US as the most important trading partner, But let's not forget that they represent 20% of trade. So let's do our utmost to capture the remaining 80%. Therefore, we are crisscrossing the world, accelerating all the negotiations because we want to open new market access for the economic operators from Europe. And as I was telling a minute ago, I mean, there are ample examples that Italians are usually the first one to jump on these new opportunities, to use these new agreements and to be very strong with your exports. Therefore, you are globally so strong in this segment. Overall economic situation in Europe, I think, is also reflected on what the leaders discussed in the last European Council. Energy prices. We have to find a way how to lower the energy prices to make our, especially industry and energy-intensive business more competitive. We are working very hard, and we need more cooperative attitude from the European Parliament to be much faster if it comes to the simplification efforts, to the cutting the red tape, because that's clearly the message we are getting from all EU member states. That's the message we are getting from the industry. Help us to do busier, easier, smoother, faster, reduce reporting, improve the business environment. And I think that's our common challenge, common tasks, and we just simply have to deliver in that regard more than before. And to conclude, I would like also to thank Antonio for Italian readiness to work with us even more closely on economic security. Big part of it is the storage of critical raw materials. First and foremost, we would like to organize, and we want to start by the end of the year to do something what I was responsible for in a previous mandate. I was responsible for common purchase of gas. Now we want to use the same pattern for common purchase of critical raw materials. So we can do the bidding on behalf of the biggest trading bloc in the world, which is us, which is the European Union, and to get the critical raw materials for better price, to have the strategic stockpiles stored in Europe, so we will not be in this permanent tension. What happens if the supplies will not come in time for the next months? And that's also our message to the industrial leaders, that we have to learn from Japan, where the businesses are working with I would say longer foresight, with a certain storage of the critical raw materials, so they are not so dependent on this increased volatility of the supply of critical raw materials or sensitive technologies, because they have a reserve, and they are working closely with the Japanese government and with a specialized agency which is responsible for providing adequate supplies of strategic supply, which is called JOGMEC. That's, at least for me personally, model what we need to do in Europe, because in that case we would feel much safer. We always would have more time to adapt our industrial output, and be better prepared for any eventualities. Thank you.
Prossima domanda, Massimo Santucci.
Asca News, Massimo Santucci. Next question. Good morning. I wanted to know whether you had a chance to look into the repercussions for Europe of the trade agreement that is about to be signed by China and the United States. Well, of course we discussed that. We have spoken about all major issues that pertain to international trade. And for us as Italians, it is very important to make sure that a level playing field is ensured with the Chinese. The only concern is that in case of agreements or disagreements with the United States, then the European market might become basically the target of an invasion, a trade invasion on the part of China. So this is why there must be a level playing field, that everybody plays by the same rules, right? When I used to be a commissioner, and the Commissioner Barnier was there, and he also shared the same views, and because it's absolutely fundamental, I guess.
Thank you very much for this question. Of course, this is a big part of our agenda, and when I started with this new job, one of my first trip was also to China, and we spent almost 3 days with the Vice Prime Minister He Feng, with the Chinese Trade Minister Wang Wentao, and my message was very clear: let's try to remove as much of the problematic issues from the table as possible. Let's try to accomplish all this before the EU-China summit in July. Unfortunately, because of the global turbulence and because of some overreactions from the Chinese side, we didn't manage to do that. I would say the quite worse. There were more topics brought to the table aimed at certain agricultural products, which we are discussing and we are disputing with our Chinese partners. That was the right step to do. Currently, I had 3 very intense conversations with my Chinese counterparts. One was probably 10 days ago with Minister Wang Wentao on this new proposed export licenses measures on the extended scope of the rare earth, but this time they also included batteries, they included the artificial diamonds, and if you compare this to the system they introduced in April, we are just concerned that how much more of these applications to process the same volumes which been flowing from China to Europe would be necessary. So therefore we of course compare the notes with our American partners. I spoke with the Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent yesterday, with the US Trade Representative Jameson Greer day before yesterday, and we agreed that the best solution in this precarious situation will be to postpone all these new Chinese export licensing measures at least by 1 year. And I understand that that was the general agreement on this between both President Xi and Trump, and that's agreement which is erga omnes, meaning that that includes also the European Union. And I can also inform you that today we have a consultations on the high-level officials on the export controls in Brussels. I very much appreciated that the Chinese delegation came up on my invitation from the last week, and we'll be working also with them how not to aggravate the situation, which is already quite serious. So we will do our utmost to address this situation in the most constructive way, but it doesn't decrease the importance we both highlighted, that we just simply have to look into the dependencies which we developed over the last year, and we have to have solid access to the critical raw materials, to rare earths, to the sensitive technology, so we would be in much better situation if this volatility would persist. Thank you.
L'ultima domanda, Riccardo Cavaliere, Rai News.
Riccardo Cavaliere, Rai News. This will be the last question. I wanted to ask, think you spoke about rare earth minerals and trade issues related to this. There was a chip emergency, and the Italian car manufacturers raised the flag about this. I believe that this also the subject of the CHIPS Act that was adopted recently. So I was wondering whether you would like to deal crises like these more effectively related to rare earth minerals. They come from China and they're produced with these materials. Absolutely, yes. When the commissioner mentioned our conversation, we want to make sure that the G7 too will be involved in dealing with economic security. We were referring to this as well. The European Union will do this at the EU level, and for sure, we will be staunch supporters of a strategy to also protect our interests from dumping also actions or whatever action which can undermine our industries, thinking about raw materials and rare earth minerals. At the upcoming G7, I will talk about this, also trying to bring to the table concrete operational proposals. So in Canada, in mid-November, I will talk about this, and I'm perfectly in tune with the Commissioner. The answer is yes.
And I think if I can add additional information, I think the gentleman was asking about the issue of legacy chips and company Nexperia. And what I would like to highlight here is the fact that we are cooperating very closely with the Dutch government, and we do not see this as a bilateral issue between Netherlands and China. We see it as a very important issue between European Union and China, because importance of an Nexperia company in the whole supply chain of this chips for machinery, for automotive industries is very, very important. So we as Europeans on this are very much united. We are working very closely with the Netherlands to find together with China and us in the European Commission the best possible solution, so the supply of these Nexperia chips could be restored as quickly as possible. On top of it, we are also starting to draft the contingency plans, looking for alternative supplies and mobilize other production lines. But I hope that we will be able together to find the solution which would restore the necessary supply for our automotive and machinery industry.
Grazie
a tutti.
Grazie.